Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.
Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. I hope everyone is doing very, very well. It's just after 10 p.m. in the United States on the East Coast. It's just after 3 a.m. over here in the UK. Yes, never say that I'm not dedicated to my craft. If you're a UK fan, you know this. Staying up and watching professional wrestling is not easy. It is not easy. If anything, the only positive thing about the lockdown is that it makes it a lot easier to stay up late and watch the wrestling over here in the UK. So that certainly is a positive. But tonight we're going to talk a little bit about NXT. NXT has just gone off the air on the USA Network. What a newsworthy show. A real newsworthy show. A lot's happened. A lot of big news that I'm sure you're probably aware of if you've, even if you didn't watch the show, it's all over social media right now. And that is the big news about the NXT Championship, which we'll get into in a second. But before we get into it, remember, as always, you can subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. And if you do enjoy this video, you can be sure to put a like, smash a like on the like button as well. That really just helps us out on YouTube, got the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds. So let's get into the show. Let's get into the show because there's so much to get into. I think my microphone went out there for a second. Sorry about that. Let's get into the show. Now, they start the show with a promo from NXT TakeOver 30 this past weekend. They shared, obviously, the big results, what happened at the show. The first thing that really stood out to me was that we saw Keith Lee in his old ring gear, right? Obviously, with what happened Monday night on Raw, with Keith Lee wearing the shorts that look like a skirt and the skin tight shirt as well. It was just nice to see Keith Lee looking like the Keith Lee that we remember, wasn't it? But anyway, we start off the show with the NXT champion, the new NXT champion, Karrion Kross, coming to the ring with Scarlett. Now, obviously, there'd been a lot of discussion about the condition of Karrion Kross because, of course, it's well known, well documented that he got an injury during his NXT Championship victory over Keith Lee at the weekend at NXT TakeOver 30. He had a separated shoulder. Triple H confirmed this during the post-show media call. Karrion Kross also confirmed this during his interviews that he did after his NXT Championship victory against with the likes of ESPN over the weekend. There was also discussion about the seriousness of this shoulder injury. They knew it was a separated shoulder, but he was going to have an MRI on Monday to see the severity of the injury. Sometimes the thing is with shoulder injuries, nowadays, if you've got a separated shoulder, dislocated shoulder, you're going to be out for some time. Back in the day, this was something that you could rehab and you'd get back in the ring. But now it doesn't look good. But yes, Karrion Kross. Sorry about that. Karrion Kross. So as I mentioned, there was a lot of discussion about his shoulder injury, how severe it was, the severity of it. As I mentioned back in the day, shoulder injury might keep you out for a month or so. They can work around it. Nowadays, because more is known about the shoulder joints, more is known about a dislocated shoulder, separated shoulder, usually can lead to a torn labrum, torn ligaments, all of stuff like that, which of course is an issue. And a lot of people were concerned, like myself, that as soon as we saw that he had a separated shoulder or a dislocated shoulder, that he might be out of the ring for a while. Now, he said in interviews, no, I'm working on ways of rehabbing it. We might look at ways that I didn't miss any time at all in the ring, stuff like that. But unfortunately, it wasn't the case. Now, he comes out, he's with Kyla, of course, he has the NXT Championship with him. But unfortunately, we knew the deal straight away because Karrion Kross is wearing a sling. He takes the mic and says, "I told you so. I became NXT champion. I warned you too that everyone would suffer." And the thing that really stood out to me at the time is that the guy just looks like an absolute megastar. In his black suit, he sounded like a monster. He had the look of a sort of supervillain style look. And I thought he just looked great and he came across great. And the whole thing that I kept thinking during this segment is just a massive shame. It's a massive shame of what happened. He said that when you go to war, you should expect casualties on both sides. And he admits, I'm in searing pain, but I love it. However, he admits that he's a realist. He says that there's no way that they, and I think he's referring to the NXT higher-ups, the WWE higher-ups. He says there's no way they're going to allow him to defend the NXT championship in this condition. He says on this path there are obstacles, but for him, the obstacles are the path. And he lays down the championship in the ring, so signifying that he's vacating the NXT championship. And suddenly the sand timer appears, right? The Karrion Kross sand timer that Scarlett carries around, that Keith Lee had to deal with, Adam Cole had to deal with. And he says that let this be a warning. This changes nothing. He's still the NXT champion. He says Doomsday is still coming, and finishes it with TikTok. Scarlett turns over the sand timer, and officially the NXT championship is now vacant. And it sucks, right? It sucks. It's a horrible situation. It's the repeat of the Finn Balor situation. Again, of course, 2016, Finn Balor becomes the very first WWE Universal Champion at SummerSlam. He injures, ironically, his shoulder during that match, wins the match, carries on with the match the following day, goes for an MRI, finds out how severe it is, and he was out in the end for, it was something like 9 months. He was out of the ring for a long, long time. Now, again, I don't know if that's going to be the same with Karrion Kross. A lot of the time with these shoulder injuries, they can be very, very complex because it's not just a separated shoulder or a dislocated shoulder. It's the ligaments that get torn when the shoulder is pulled out of the joint. So that's the concerning thing there. It's not just the shoulder pop back in, it's the other stuff associated with it. So, and I'm no expert, I'm not a doctor, but I know that a lot of the time with these shoulder injuries, Finn Balor, I remember Sheamus had a bad shoulder injury. They can be out for 9 months to a year. Look at Hideo Itami when he was in NXT. He had a shoulder injury. He was out for nearly like 18 months. Again, I don't think Karrion Kross is going to be out for 18 months, but my point being, this is very complex. So it does suck, and it especially sucks for Karrion Kross because this guy's in the middle of a monster push. They were building the brand NXT around him. And from NXT's point of view and Triple H's point of view, they just lost Keith Lee to the main roster, and now you lose the guy who took the title off of Keith Lee. So that main event that you had at the weekend at NXT TakeOver doesn't exist now. So that hurts for NXT. That absolutely hurts. And I feel for Karrion Kross. He'll get the bout again. I have no doubt he'll get the bout again. And he'll come back and he'll be better than ever. It's a horrible situation. He won the NXT Championship after just his 7th match or something in the WWE. So not only did he he lost the title after his 7th match and he just won it, but he's got an injury after his 7th match with the company. And everyone aspires to become a WWE wrestler, WWE superstar. So it's a horrible situation, and it's the biggest moment of his career, and this happens. So it sucks big time. I sympathise and I empathise with him because it really does suck, and I really do feel bad for him, and I'm sure everyone else does. But he'll come back. He'll be better. He'll be bigger. And I'm sure he'll get the NXT Championship back again. Some people may look at it, way further down the line of, well, it delays his WWE debut because there were rumours and reports that Karrion Kross's stay in NXT was actually going to be a short one. He was going to go into NXT, get the monster push, win the NXT Championship, and then he was going to be on Raw or SmackDown maybe as soon as after WrestleMania next year. If the guy's out 9 months, that definitely isn't going to happen now. So again, that sucks for him as well. So it's just a terrible situation. It's a terrible situation, but that's professional wrestling, and he will come back bigger and better. I have no doubt about that. So after that opening segment, we go to the commentary booth, and we see Wade Barrett. Yes, Stu Bennett, Wade Barrett, the former leader of the Nexus, 5-time WWE Intercontinental. Wade Barrett is on commentary with Vic Joseph for the night. He's the guest commentator. It was nice to see Wade Barrett come back to NXT. Of course, he was the first winner of NXT Season 1 when it was a game show on Sci-Fi, so it was nice to see him make a bit of a full circle return. Hasn't been with the WWE since 2016. During that time, he's done a lot of acting roles. He hasn't done any wrestling. He left WWE 2016, allowed his contract to expire. He's spoken openly that he was having quite a few health issues at the time in terms of he had a really bad neck injury, he was having numbness in his arms, and he just didn't feel it was worth it for where he was in the company at the time. So took some time away. During that period, he's also transitioned into the broadcast booth, into commentary. He was part of the commentary team for the World of Sport reboot with Jim Ross. Or going to be with Jim Ross, but he was part of the World of Sport reboot over here on ITV. He's also the commentator that replaced Jim Cornette after Jim Cornette got fired. Jim Cornette getting fired, could you believe it? From the NWA, and was a regular color commentator with Joe Galli on NWA Power when they were doing those TV tapings, which of course been halted due to the pandemic. He's really good on commentary. He's really, really good, and it was nice to see Wade Barrett back under the WWE umbrella. If I'm totally honest, I would have loved to have heard the Wade or the Bad News Barrett. I've got some bad news, but it's not about Wade Barrett, right? He's there to put the talent over, not to get himself over, and that's why I think he did a great job tonight. Now, it had been reported yesterday, Ryan Satin of Pro Wrestling Sheet did break the news that Wade Barrett would be returning to WWE for the NXT commentary position. At the time, this was suggested that it was going to be a one-night gig and a one-night deal. Wade Barrett confirmed during the broadcast tonight that he's going to be back next week. I don't think this is a full-time thing. As far as I'm aware, he's still with the NWA. The NWA are very close to back to be putting on shows. They're going to be doing weekly pay-per-views with Fight TV soon. So I don't know if Stu Bennett, Wade Barrett, will be part of that. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, the glaring absence here is no Mauro Ranallo again. Now, I'm a huge mental health advocate, so I don't want to speculate as to why Mauro's not been there. I don't think that's right or fair. I just know that it doesn't feel like NXT without Mauro Ranallo. For me, he's the best commentator in the business right now. NXT TakeOver at the weekend didn't feel like NXT TakeOver without Mauro Ranallo. So hopefully we see him back in the commentary booth soon. But I thought Wade Barrett, Vic Joseph and Beth Phoenix did a great job tonight. But it was quite glaring because one of the real selling points between Mauro with NXT and AEW during the Wednesday Night Wars is that I felt that NXT's commentary team was actually really strong. I liked the commentary trio of Mauro Ranallo, Beth Phoenix and Nigel McGuinness. I thought they were a great trio. And now 2/3 of them aren't with NXT at the moment. You know, Mauro's obviously away. Beth's actually physically not there. She's doing commentary from her home. And Nigel McGuinness is on furlough, and we don't really know who's going to be when he's going to be back. There's rumours that he's the reason he's on furlough and not back at the moment is because he's over here in the UK, so the travel restrictions are difficult, but I thought they did a good job on commentary night. So let's check the live chat. John Elite for Life says, bummer that Kross vacated the title. Yeah, I agree. It is a bummer. He'll come back, though. But yeah, it sucks for him and sucks for NXT. Alan Jones Styles says, who won? Who is the new NXT champion? We're going to find out next week. William Regal. Easy for me to say. You can tell it's literally 3:30 a.m. over here. But William Regal made an announcement. We'll touch on it in a bit. But we're going to find out who the new NXT champion is next week on Super Tuesday edition of NXT. So first match of the evening was for the NXT Tag Team Championships. We had NXT Tag Team Champions Imperium defending against Breezango. Now, Breezango became the number one contenders at the weekend during the NXT TakeOver 30 kickoff show, or pre-show, they call it in NXT. It's not kickoff show, it's pre-show. Why they have to change it, I don't know. I just prefer everything be a pre-show, but okay. Breezango starts the match off hot. They attack both members of Imperium. Imperium worked over Fandango for the early portion of this match. Marcel Barthel had a nice sequence with Tyler Breeze where Breeze hit a spin kick, a version of the beauty shot for a 2 count. Fandango hits the leg drop on Fabian Eichner, who was on the knees of Tyler Breeze. Fabian Eichner hit a German suplex on Fandango on the floor as well. This match was really hurt because it had 2 commercial breaks during it. Commercial breaks to a professional wrestling match. Obviously, I get that it's a TV show and you need to go to ad breaks, but commercial breaks during a match is just about kryptonite to a professional wrestling match. It kills the momentum dead, and I think that really hurt this match. I thought the match was good, but I really did think the commercial breaks really hurt this one. I really must say that I want to single him out here. Marcel Barthel, I'm a big fan of his work. I think he's really solid in the ring and really sound in the ring. Classic European style, which of course being British, I really appreciate that. I enjoy his work a lot. I think he's very underrated. Barthel, as I just mentioned, hits an air raid crash on Fandango for a 2 count. Then we get a hot tag to Tyler Breeze. He super kicks both members of Imperium. Tags in Fandango, who hits a double leg drop to both members of Imperium. Pins Fabian Eichner for the win. And we have new NXT Tag Team Champions. So Breezango, Tyler Breeze, Fandango are the new NXT Tag Team Champions. Now, I do think Breezango probably needed that tag title win. And I'm happy to see him win. You know, their first ever tag titles. They've been a team for quite a long time now. Since at least, 2016? Maybe even earlier than that. It's the first ever title victory for them both in WWE. And you think how long that Fandango, Johnny Curtis, whatever you want to call him, he's been there since the early days of FCW in 2010. So his first title win with WWE after being there for nearly 10 years. So congratulations to them. I thought the match was fine. Like I said, I thought the commercial breaks did hurt it. But the thing that it doesn't change my mind about is that my opinion on the NXT Tag Team division, it didn't change at all. It really just isn't what it was. The Tag Team division in NXT reflects the Tag Team division of Raw and SmackDown in WWE. It's not very good. The Tag Team depth isn't there. The focus isn't there. And you look at the tag teams that have come through NXT in the past, American Alpha, AOP, DIY, The Revival, etc., Street Profits, and there doesn't feel that strength and depth at the moment. And this is no slight against Tyler Breeze and Fandango, but is Breezango the best tag team that NXT have right now? I think that says a lot about the tag team division, to be honest. And again, I don't mean that to come off as a disrespect to them. I think it just shows the depth of NXT's tag team division right now, and that it's just not what it was. What tag teams are coming through? You've got Legado del Fantasma, okay, but that doesn't excite me. Indus Sher, I don't think they're ready yet, and I think WWE agreed that they're not ready. You've got the Undisputed Era there, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, but it looked later on in the show that they're planting the seeds for the end of the Undisputed Era. So the tag team division, I think, needs a lot of work in NXT. And I do, like I said, I did enjoy this match. I think the match was good. However, I think it's quite glaring, the issues that they have with the tag team division in NXT right now. So we then go to a backstage interview with Damian Priest. He says the after party after his NXT North American Championship victory is still rolling, but he's interrupted by Timothy Thatcher, who calls him embarrassing. He says he wants the first shot at Damian Priest's NXT North American Championship. He said he will show how unequipped Damian Priest's wrestling is. Damian Priest said he's more than equipped, drinks some champagne and leaves. So apparently Damian Priest is an alcoholic. Now, you win the NXT North American Championship and you just drink champagne. I don't know. I'm a big fan of Damian Priest. I've mentioned this quite a few times that I think he's money. I think Vince McMahon especially is going to look at Damian Priest and think this guy's money because he's got the size, he's got the look that Vince McMahon loves. I think he'll have actually greater success on the WWE main roster on Raw or SmackDown than he will in NXT. I think he'll be a bit like Baron Corbin in that way. But Damian Priest, I get what this segment was. It's meant to make him, because he's a babyface now, it's meant to make him feel cool. Like a cool babyface, doesn't care about anyone, just whatever. It just came across like a heel. I just found him quite annoying during this segment, so that remains to be seen. So we then saw a shot of Triple H, William Regal, Shawn Michaels, and Matt Bloom discussing earlier in the day about how to resolve the vacant NXT Championship situation. We then had the return of Tommaso Champa to NXT, the first time we've seen Tommaso Champa in 2 months. He was wearing his old mask that he used to wear quite a lot on the indie scene. He looks in great shape. To be honest, ever since he returned from the neck injury last year, he has just been in the shape of his life. He is absolutely all jacked up. He looks unbelievable. As I mentioned, the first time we've seen Tommaso Ciampa since NXT TakeOver in Your House, where he lost to Karrion Kross. The match started off very quick. It was a very quick match, to be honest. Headbutt by Tommaso Ciampa. Ciampa then just beat the living hell out of Jake Atlas, just stomped on his head about 10 times. Willow's Bow DDT, and that's it for the victory. The match must have lasted... probably the match lasted less time than it took for me to describe it. It was that quick. The match must have lasted all of 30 seconds. Now, this, for me, was a signal of what was to come. I was surprised that even when Tommaso Ciampa made his entrance, the crowd was booing. And it felt like not only was the crowd booing, but there was some piped-in boos that they'd done in post-production. So that perked up my ears for a second there, because I thought, wait, why would you be booing Tommaso Ciampa? The guy's a babyface. But it showed, if anything, it showed NXT's hand there, because it looks like Tommaso Ciampa is back to being a heel in NXT. Because once the match is over, Tommaso Ciampa attacks Jake Atlas. He throws him into the plexiglass and into the steel ring steps. The officials come out, tell him to leave. Tommaso Ciampa fakes leaving and then kicks Atlas in the head. And then he did a spot that I really liked. I really enjoyed this spot. He slides Atlas under the ring and he does the sort of slingshot move where the neck... If he did this in the ring, I think it's like a guillotine move, essentially, where you slide the opponent under the rope, the bottom rope or the second rope, and then you slingshot them up and it's a guillotine, hits their neck on the rope. But instead of doing it on the ropes, Tommaso Ciampa slid him under the ring, and this time Jake Atlas's neck hits the underside of the ring, which was just an awesome spot. I've never seen that before, ever. And I thought it looked really, really good. Really, really good. And Jake Atlas, in fairness, sold it like $1 million. He looked absolutely great. So as the officials are working on Atlas, put him on the stretcher, Tommaso Ciampa just sits on the ring apron and he watches Atlas get attended and put on the stretcher. It just looked, they showed a replay and it just looked absolutely sick. Absolutely sick. It was just a great spot. And Ciampa just looked like an absolute psycho as he watched Atlas get attended to. So Atlas is on the stretcher, but then like a classic heel that Tommaso Ciampa is, he attacks him again, hits the Willow's Bow off of the stretcher this time and onto the floor, and Atlas, again, this was an RVD level DDT cell here. He was right spiked on his head, and Ciampa just smiles and leaves, and to be honest, it was an awesome segment. Of course, awesome to see Tommaso Ciampa back, but just an awesome segment altogether. I thought it was shot really well, done really well. Tommaso Ciampa, to me, is just the best as a heel. He always does his best work as a heel. So it was an awesome segment. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Then we had a promo where Candice LeRae discusses her friendship with Tegan Nox. She spoke about her friendship, her memories, said they were like peanut butter and jelly. Talks about going to a castle in Wales, which of course where Tegan Nox is from, cooking together. She says she helped Tegan Nox when she needed it, but where was Tegan Nox when she needed it? And says that Tegan needs to follow her. If she doesn't want to go down this path, then she needs to stay out of her way. So it was just a promo to continue the Tegan Nox and Candice LeRae feud. Let's check on the chat here. Joseph Rojas Vivo says, I feel like Champa or Balor are going to be the new NXT champion. I agree with you. I will give you my prediction when we get onto the William Regal announcement. But this was certainly, what happened next was certainly something that a lot of people are going to talk about. Bronson Reed was having an interview backstage talking about the NXT North American Championship. He says that he appreciates Timothy Thatcher's ambition to challenge Damian Priest, but he was the one that actually beat Damian Priest in the past. But he's then interrupted by the returning Austin Theory. Austin Theory says he's here to give Bronson Reed some advice, talks about getting to WrestleMania when he was only 21 years old, and says that Bronson Reed will be 55 by the time he's the North American champion. Bronson Reed slaps the hell out of Theory so hard that it looked like it was very, very real and had some absolute malice behind it. Austin Theory just laughs this off, and we go to the next segment. So, a lot to break down there. Austin Theory is back with NXT. Now, he had disappeared for a while because he was on Monday Night Raw with Seth Rollins in a much more featured spot than he is here in NXT. Of course, he appeared at WrestleMania, made his debut on the main roster just before WrestleMania, and in his second or third match on the main roster, he was in WrestleMania. But then he was part of the Andrade Angel Garza's Lita Vega stable, gets kicked to the curb, but he was with Seth Rollins, so he actually got elevated from that, and people thought, this guy's, 21, 22, he's going to be a future star, he's going to be money, but then he disappeared, and then the reports were by the likes of Dave Meltzer and other wrestling journalists that he was suspended. Now, he was suspended due to some quite disturbing speaking out allegations against him, involving minors and involving his time on the independent scene. I won't get into the allegations here, but they are very, very serious and very, very disturbing. As I mentioned, he had been suspended. WWE hadn't announced that he'd been suspended, but Dave Meltzer said that he had been suspended. Seth Rollins was actually asked about Austin Theory over the weekend prior to SummerSlam, and he gave a very non-committal answer that Theory was going through some things and had to take some time away. It just sounded like, please don't ask me this question. I don't want to be speaking about this. So there's a lot to break down here. I'm surprised he's back. I am surprised he's back. And the reason why I say I'm surprised he's back is given the backlash that the Velveteen Dream has received. Now, obviously, the allegations are slightly different here, but they fall under the same umbrella. Given the backlash that the Velveteen Dream has received for coming back and being brought back by WWE, Velveteen Dream was not on this show, by the way. I think that's selling the bump that he took at NXT TakeOver 30 in the North American ladder match. I'm very confused as to why NXT and WWE, for that matter, would double down on bringing back someone else that kind of falls into the same category as Velveteen Dream with the controversy of the speaking out movement. I don't see from a PR perspective. I work in marketing. I've worked in marketing for quite a long time in PR. I just don't see why you would double down on that and bring Austin Theory back now when the Velveteen Dreams issue is still something that is very much in the eye and in the discussion of professional wrestling right now. We saw it at SummerSlam, right? SummerSlam, someone in the Thunderdome held up a sign that said, Fire Velveteen Dream. And it got people talking because people aren't happy with the way that issue has been resolved or hasn't been resolved. So I was just surprised that they would bring back Austin Theory and essentially double down and make the problem worse for themselves right now. Now, I'm not saying that they need to fire Austin Theory, far from it. Now, he's, of course, as everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But the issue of the whole speaking out movement and the issue of the likes of the Velveteen Dream and Austin Theory, it's very, very raw right now. And WWE need to be transparent. This is the same thing I said about the Velveteen Dream issue. WWE needs to be transparent. They need to share the reasons why they're back, and they need to share their investigations that they've done. I think they should have kept Austin Theory off of television for a while longer, in the same way that I think they should have for the Velveteen Dream. Fans aren't comfortable with them appearing on television right now, and that won't go away. The idea that, we'll just keep them on TV and eventually you'll forget, it doesn't work like that anymore. Social media has changed that. Maybe back in the day where social media didn't exist, you could just keep them on TV and eventually it would go away. I don't think that's the case now. People remember. and people bring stuff back up. The Velveteen Dream issue doesn't look to be going away anytime soon, and I don't think the way the WWE have handled it is very good at all. You've got Triple H on media calls saying, we looked into it, there's nothing there. Or we investigate it, we take it seriously, there's nothing there. And then you've got the accuser of the Velveteen Dream coming out and saying, WWE never contacted me. WWE never spoke to me. How can WWE have conducted a thorough investigation without even speaking to the accuser themselves? If this was a court of law, if this was a genuine police investigation, that's not how it would work. They would just speak to one side. There's two sides to every story. And there's a million shades of grey in these kind of situations. And especially in the speaking out movement, those kind of allegations, a lot of it is anecdotal. There is difficult to find evidence sometimes with these situations. So the fact that they hadn't spoken to the accuser concerns me, and I don't know if it's the same situation with Austin Theory. I'm sure they will come out and say that they've investigated the situation with Austin Theory. I'm sure they'll come out and say Austin Theory was suspended, and there were reports just even a couple of days ago that the Austin Theory allegations were more serious, and that's why he had been suspended, whereas Velveteen Dream was just off TV because he was in a car accident. And it's just, again, I'm surprised they brought him back. I'm surprised they brought him back because it just opens the can of worms that had already been opened. And it doesn't look good for WWE. So I'm surprised they brought him back. Not to say that they should get rid of him, but I just think they should have held off. And another thing that I thought of is you got to think that they're lucky that there are no fans right now. Can you imagine the reaction in arenas if there were fans there, a capacity crowd? They're worried about people on the Thunderdome behaving badly. Could you imagine if people in the crowd started chanting stuff at Austin Theory or Velveteen Dream? In some markets, they would do that. In those northern markets, they would do it. Can you tell me a New York crowd won't chant some stuff at a guy they hate because they think that they're guilty of these allegations? So I suppose a positive thing for WWE is they can kind of control this narrative a little bit about Austin Theory and the Velveteen Dream right now, but I just don't think they're handling it very well. And I think they need to be more transparent, and I'm sure we'll find out more in the coming days, but it doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good for WWE. So after that, we had Mia Yim versus Shotzi Blackheart. Now, Mia Yim was out first, and Robert Stone interrupts. He says that Mercedes Martinez isn't going to get in the ring with Mia Yim after what happened to Mercedes Martinez last week. Of course, she was powerbombed by Rhea Ripley last week on NXT. And as he's talking, he being Robert Stone, he is run over once again by Shotzi Blackheart and her tank. This was shot really well. Really, it was shot so well, because you didn't see it at all. You didn't, as the SummerSlam tagline would say, you didn't see it coming. So I thought that was a lot of fun. Robert Stone sold it really well. Some people aren't massive fans of Robert Stone. I think he's harmless fun. And you've got to have a bit of comedy on pro wrestling shows and a bit of entertainment, a bit of sizzle. So I don't have a problem with him. I think Shotzi Blackheart is going to be another one is going to be a huge star. I really, really do. I think she's got a great gimmick, a great entrance, a great look. She looks a lot different to the females on the WWE roster right now. Maybe she needs to snug up on her work. I think in the ring sometimes it can come across a little bit too choreographed and a little bit too hesitant, but I think she's got a lot of potential. I really do. Mia Yim in the match punched Shotzi Blackheart in the throat, which I thought was great. You don't see a throat punch that often nowadays. Mia Yim was actually part of the Retribution angle on Monday Night on Raw, it seemed. I think it's pretty obvious she was one of those people. It looked exactly like her, even in the mask. So I would assume that she won't be in NXT much longer. She'll be going to Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, wherever Retribution ends up. Mia Yim put Shotzi in the surfboard, which was a nice spot. She also hit Shotzi with a dragon suplex, but that wouldn't last long as Shotzi Blackheart hit the senton off of the top rope for the victory. The match was short, it was quick, but it was intense, and it was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed this match. Obviously, a big win for Shotzi Blackheart to beat Mia Yim. The announcers really sold it, and they were obviously told to sell it as a shock victory. Going, oh, it's a real shock victory. Didn't see that one coming for Shotzi Blackheart. So Mia Yim, to me, watching that, feels like she's doing the favours on the way out, because I think she is going to Raw or SmackDown. I think she is going to be part of the Retribution faction, good or bad. But I think she's on her way out. That's why she did the job here for Shotzi Blackheart, who is the up-and-coming babyface female on NXT right now. So I think Shotzi Blackheart is just going to be a really big, popular babyface on the main roster. I think you can tell that the younger females are going to love her. The guys are going to love her. She's just got a very universal appeal. The tank's great. The helmet's great. I think she's just going to be a big star. I think she's a lot of money. As I mentioned, maybe needs to focus up on the in-ring work, but I think she's going to be a real big character. I really do. So we have Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez backstage. Dakota Kai said that Rhea Ripley should have minded her own business at NXT TakeOver 30. Says that Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai are a team and Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai are not hyping up the main event. Dakota says that she deserves to be the NXT Women's Champion and will prove that. Raquel Gonzalez takes the mic and says Rhea Ripley messed up by getting in her face. The main takeaway for me from this promo is that Raquel Gonzalez is money. She is absolute money, and the main event just absolutely proved that. She is going to be, she's got a look and can work and can talk. She is going to be a big deal, not only in NXT, but in WWE very soon. So we had the William Regal announcement, which was the announcement really that everyone's going to be talking about coming out of this show. Now, William Regal announces the future of the NXT Championship, of course, after the NXT Championship was vacated by Karrion Kross earlier on in the evening due to his shoulder injury. William Regal says that Karrion Kross has handled the situation with conviction and ferocity and wishes him the best, but life moves on, of course. So they need to decide who is going to become the new NXT champion. Now, he says that the NXT Management Committee have come up with a solution. Next week, Tuesday night NXT Super Tuesday. Now, next week NXT is going to be on Tuesday due to the USA Network airing the NHL playoffs. So just like AEW Dynamite has been moved around recently, so is NXT. Now, of course, AEW Dynamite airs tomorrow on Thursday, but the original planned NBA game that was going to happen tonight did not happen due to protests and a walkout by the NBA players. Won't touch on that in this because this is a wrestling channel. But there's a lot of movement at the moment in the schedules. That's my point there. So he says next week on the Tuesday night NXT, 4 former NXT champions will battle in a fatal 4-way match to determine the new NXT champion. Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Finn Balor, or as William Regal would say, Balor. I was just waiting for him to say Umanga. Again, do you remember that when William Regal just always used to say Umanga with Umaga? Used to love that. And Adam Cole. But he said for the first time ever, it will be a fatal 4-way 60-minute Iron Man match. Whoa, whoa, whoa. 60-minute Iron Man match. This is going to be a classic. This is going to be an absolute classic. Now, what's important to realise here, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, a 60-minute Iron Man match technically is probably going to be like a 45-minute Iron Man match because commercial breaks in 60 minutes is probably about 15 minutes, realistically. You usually have about 15 minutes of ad breaks per hour, so it's about a 45-minute Iron Man match that we're going to see. But it's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. To me, that could easily be match of the year. Look at the 4 guys in there. Gargano, Ciampa, Balor, and Adam Cole. 4 cornerstones of NXT, former NXT champions. When they were the NXT champion, absolutely killed it. It's going to be incredible, and I think NXT should do a good rating because of that. Not only will we be getting a guaranteed title change, but just an incredible match. Hopefully they don't spoil it like the last NXT championship change on NXT television that happened with Keith Lee. But I mean, it speaks for itself. I don't need to go in depth for that one. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. As far as who wins, Johnny Gargano, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he feels as special since he's turned heel. He doesn't feel like the Johnny Gargano of a couple of years ago that just felt like the face of NXT. That's kind of gone for him, and I think he's trying to find the way as a heel, but it's just not working. Tommaso Ciampa is an absolute possibility. He's back to being a heel tonight. And Tommaso Ciampa, to me, he never lost the NXT Championship. He is NXT. He said he's never moving. He ain't going to Raw or SmackDown. Rumors about him going to Retribution. A lot of people waved that off because he was like, I ain't leaving. I'm never going to leave. If they ask me to go Raw or SmackDown, I'll retire. So Tommaso Ciampa, I could definitely see becoming the NXT Champion here. Adam Cole, I don't think will. He just lost the NXT Championship after being champion for over 400 days. I think he's heading to Raw or SmackDown very soon. In fact, I think this match next week will probably be Adam Cole's last match in NXT, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe even appears on SmackDown, or he appears on the SmackDown or Raw post Payback. I could certainly see that happening. If anything, the timeline would make sense that Payback happens Sunday, he has the match on NXT on Tuesday, then appears on SmackDown next Friday. I could certainly see that a possibility. So I think the most likely person to win the NXT Championship here is Finn Balor. To me, Finn Balor's run in NXT so far, it's been very disappointing, I think. Now, he's had good matches, but circumstances obviously haven't helped due to COVID and injuries. But it just, to me, it hasn't gone to plan. I felt like, and I think NXT and WWE felt like Finn Balor going to NXT was going to be, the equivalent of Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho going to AEW. It was legitimate star power that was going to help bring in the ratings. It was a main roster superstar on a lot of money, and he still was on the main roster contract, coming to NXT and helping move the needle, and it just hasn't happened. He's got lost in the shuffle a little bit. He opened TakeOver at the weekend. Finn Balor shouldn't be opening a TakeOver. On the money he's on, he really shouldn't be doing that. So I think he wins, and I think it's the shot in the arm that he needs for this NXT run. Match could be a match of the year, could be absolutely incredible. So really looking forward to that one next week. Who do you think is going to win the NXT Championship? Let me know your thoughts in the live chat or the comments. Wade Barrett to this news says he's going to be back next week. So a one-night gig has turned into a two-night gig. So we'll wait and see on that one. But we had more championship matches up next. We had the NXT Cruiserweight Championship on the line. Santos Escobar, the NXT Cruiserweight Champion, defending against Isaiah Swerve Scott. Now, to start this match, Santos Escobar tells Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza to stay back. Wade Barrett here did a great job on commentary of putting over the Cruiserweight division. He said that he struggled the most against Cruiserweight athletes in his career. Said he's got 5 of his nose breaks against the Cruiserweight style athletes. Santos Escobar, in my opinion, just has a great look. A real great look. I'm glad he ditched the mask because I think he looks a lot better without it. Santos Escobar throws Swerve Scott into the apron, from the apron into the plexiglass, which is a nice spot. Hits the double knees to the chest in the corner for a 2 count. Swerve goes for a jump-in Hurricane Rana from the second rope while Escobar is standing on the second rope with him, but Escobar catches him mid-air and turns it into a powerbomb, which was nice. Swerve Scott hit like a Frosbury flop to the outside and landed on his feet, which is just, the athleticism there is just absolutely outrageous. It was ridiculous. But out comes Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza for the distraction. They had a mask with them at the time, and we then had a distraction. And we had a drop kick by Santos Escobar. You thought it was the finish, but it was a 2 count. It was such a close 2 count, though. And then out come the new NXT Tag Team Champions, Breezango. They attack Legado del Fantasma, so it's just Escobar and Scott left in the ring. Scott hits a high knee, and you're thinking, oh my God, we're going to get another championship change on this show. We're going to NXT Champion vacated, Tag Team titles vacated. We're going to have a Cruiserweight title change here. But Santos Escobar kicks out at 2. Scott looks to have the match won, but Santos Escobar then gets his hand on the rope to break up the 2 count, or the 3 count rather. Santos Escobar then goes to the outside, puts on a luchador mask that was brought out by, I think it was Raul Mendoza. He then headbutts Swerve Scott, who was then knocked out. Santos Escobar gets the pinfall victory and retains the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. Now, the commentators sold this like, oh my God, what happened? You just headbutted him and he knocked him out. It's incredible. Which was a bit dumb for me because it was very obvious that the mask was loaded. It was a loaded mask. He puts the mask on. He even, does the fist to his skull to imply that it's loaded. So a loaded mask we had there. We've seen loaded gloves and loaded all sorts. But I don't think I've ever seen a loaded mask before. That's new. So creativity, didn't mind that. What bothered me was the commentators being told not to acknowledge it at all when it obviously was. They were just like, oh, it's amazing. I can't believe that happened. Of course it was, mask was loaded. Everyone saw the mask was loaded. So I thought that was a bit dumb to have the announcers play off like they didn't know what was going on. Really silly. Really silly. So we had a couple more promos here. One by Johnny Gargano, talking about nearly breaking his neck last week during his match. He says he's the Iron Man of NXT, and now next week he'll have the title to prove that he's the Iron Man when he wins the NXT Championship in the Iron Man match next week. As I mentioned just a minute ago, heel Johnny Gargano just doesn't work at all for me. He doesn't feel like the big deal that he was previously. At one point, Johnny Gargano was NXT. He was the Daniel Bryan underneath babyface, booked to perfection, and I understand that character only has a certain shelf life and it does need to evolve and change, and I don't have a problem with that. I just don't think heel Johnny Gargano works. He just doesn't come across as like a threatening heel, and I know he's trying to play up the more, chicken shit heel kind of deal, but I just don't think that works for him. So I'm not a massive fan of this Johnny Gargano. I'm a fan of Johnny Gargano, obviously, but I just don't think this heel character works. This is then followed up by a Finn Balor promo. He talks about all the pieces being set, calls the 4 competitors in next week's the 4 cornerstones of NXT, and says that he will win the NXT Championship next week. I said earlier that I think Finn Balor will be the guy to win the NXT Championship next week, and the irony is there. Life is very, very strange, and it's going to be very ironic because, of course, Finn Balor, maybe one of the things he's known for best on the main roster is that he was the first Universal Champion. He won the Universal Championship at SummerSlam in 2016, but he got injured during that match. It was a shoulder injury, and the very next night on Raw, he had to relinquish it. It's the exact same circumstances of what happened to Karrion Kross here, and the irony that he could win the NXT Championship the second time because of the exact same reason of what happened to him. It's just very interesting. Life comes full circle. Maybe this is the way of paying back what happened to him, and this time he capitalizes on it, right? It was Kevin Owens that capitalized on it on the main roster. Maybe Finn Balor capitalizes on Karrion Kross's injury, and I think that's a fun story. I think that's a fun story that they could tell, and when Karrion Kross comes back, you can do the Karrion Kross-Finn Balor feud, and Finn Balor suddenly feels like, actually a big deal in NXT again. So I think that's quite interesting. So next up, we had Kyle O'Reilly of the Undisputed Era versus Drake Maverick. I think that really stood out to me here is obviously the Undisputed Era's theme. And Keith Lee, of course, his theme song changed on Monday Night Raw this past week. And that's by all accounts due to the relationship or lack of relationship WWE has with the CFOs. CFOs are no longer with the company. That was the case a couple of years ago now, but the CFOs signed a really bad deal, or WWE signed a bad deal. So WWE really wants to change as many of the CFO themes as possible, which sucks because they had a lot of great themes, I thought. The best one is the Undisputed Era's theme, of course. Can you imagine if WWE tried to change the Undisputed Era theme? What a disgrace that would be. What an absolute disgrace. Could you imagine? So the whole premise of this match was that Drake Maverick wanted revenge after the Undisputed Era attacked both Drake Maverick and Killian Dane a few weeks ago on NXT. We had serious Drake Maverick out here. And the serious Drake Maverick, again, a bit like the heel Johnny Gargano, just doesn't do it for me. For me, what made the serious Drake Maverick worked in that Cruiserweight Championship tournament because of the story, getting released, blah, blah, blah. We know that. But prior to that, what made him so great as Rockstar Spud in Impact Wrestling? What made him so great is that he was a comedic character that was silly and it was over the top and was outrageous and got the hell kicked out of him, but eventually that worked him over to a sympathetic babyface. And I don't think that's the same here. I think this serious Drake Maverick, it just isn't for me. He needs to have the mixture. What he's best known for is the comedic roles, and I think he needs to come back to that and work himself back over as a babyface that way. Now, Drake Maverick does a senton to the outside onto Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish, similar to the Pat McAfee one done at the weekend at NXT TakeOver 30. Wade Barrett here, great line again. Talked that the Undisputed Era were way more cohesive than the Nexus ever were. Nice little Nexus reference. I was wondering if they would get that in on the show, so I enjoyed that. But Kyle O'Reilly locks on an Imanari roll. A nice jiu-jitsu MMA submission here onto Drake Maverick. Drake Maverick, in fairness, sold it really well. Taps out, great submission. Wade Barrett, again, put the submission over on commentary, great too. Really enjoyed that. The Undisputed Era attacked Drake Maverick after the match, but what was interesting here is that Kyle O'Reilly kind of tried to call it off. He didn't want them to attack Drake Maverick post-match, which was weird, which to me could be seen as the start of the Undisputed Era breakup. And again, no slight to Drake Maverick, but I thought the Undisputed Era, after everything they've been through, what they've done in NXT is the start of their breakup is over whether or not they should attack Drake Maverick. Okay. So out comes Killian Dane. He evens the odds. He attacks the Undisputed Era with a steel chair. And you're thinking, is Killian Dane and Drake Maverick a pair now? Is Killian Dane a babyface? Dope. Drake Maverick says thank you, and Killian Dane just about takes his head off with a clothesline, which I always love. I always love a bully character. I don't know why. Maybe that means I'm a bully. But I thought Killian Dane just looked great here and like a badass. The match itself was not a lot to write home about. I think the most interesting thing is that there was kind of a little bit of dissension. There was the seeds of the Undisputed Era breaking up, which I never want to see, ever. But, of course, Adam Cole wasn't involved in this one, so it makes you think that Adam Cole potentially, again, is going to be going to the main roster, but the Undisputed Era are going to be staying in NXT, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe the way of not using that Undisputed Era theme is by breaking up the Undisputed Era. We'll have to wait and see on that one. So we have a couple more promos before we have our main event. We have Rhea Ripley. She says she obviously wants what Io Shirai has, and she didn't come down to save Io at NXT TakeOver. She came down to say to Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez that Io Shirai is hers now. If they want Rhea Ripley to get out of their face, why don't they make her? And we then had the final promo by one of the 4 participants in the NXT Championship Iron Man match next week, which was Adam Cole. It says the Mount Rushmore of NXT compete next week. Debatable. I think the Mount Rushmore of NXT is just very debatable. Absolutely, those 4 guys could be considered in there, but are they the Mount Rushmore of NXT? I don't know. Surely Triple H himself has to be involved in that one, or Kevin Owens. Tough one. Shinsuke Nakamura. There's a lot of names. There's a lot of names in there. But he says he'll win the NXT title next week. As I mentioned, I don't think he will. I think he's destined for the main roster very soon. I think he'll be debuting on SmackDown in a couple of weeks' time after Payback and after this NXT Championship match next week. I think that'll be his final match of NXT. I really don't see him winning the title back. He just had it for 400 days. I don't think there's any need for that. He's done what he can do in NXT at this point. So main event. We had the main event, NXT Women's Champion Io Shirai teaming up with Rhea Ripley to face off against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez came out here all smiles. We had a Rhea Ripley collar and elbow tie-up to start this match with Dakota Kai, and she slammed Dakota Kai's face so hard into the canvas, which was great. And Dakota Kai sold it so well, and I think she sold it so well because genuinely she got her face smashed into the canvas. It was brutal. So she calls in Raquel Gonzalez, and this was cool. I'm really into this Rhea Ripley-Raquel Gonzalez feud because you just don't see these two almost Amazonian-style, this is what Beth Phoenix called it on commentary, Amazonian-style females battle it out that often. It's a spectacle. It's an absolute spectacle. So that was cool. There was a headbutt by Rhea Ripley, but it didn't do any damage to Raquel Gonzalez. Io Shirai then tags herself in, but we'll be back from the break. Rhea Ripley tags herself back in. Raquel Gonzalez works over Rhea Ripley on the outside and in the ring. Io Shirai gets the hot tag. We get a scorpion kick by Dakota Kai to Io Shirai, which was nice. Shirai hits a knee to Dakota Kai, though. Beautiful as well. German suplex with a bridge by Io Shirai. Love a German suplex and a bridge. Professional wrestling. Not many people do them as much often. It's just always great to see. Io Shirai tags in Rhea Ripley, but the referee didn't see it as he was preoccupied with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. This then allowed Mercedes Martinez to pull Rhea Ripley off of the apron. Rhea hits her head on the apron. Doing so, of course, Rhea Ripley nearly killed Mercedes Martinez last week on NXT, powerbombing her onto the concrete, apparently. But apparently she's fine. So she's got the recovery skills of a Bray Wyatt and Fiend, because that was also a concrete slam spot done last week. So Io Shirai doesn't know that Rhea is down, but Rhea Ripley gets herself back up, tags herself back in, but she immediately eats a big boot by Raquel Gonzalez. Then Raquel Gonzalez hits a version of a powerbomb and gets the victory by pinning clean-ish Rhea Ripley. And Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai beat Rhea Ripley to get the victory. Huge takeaway from this one, as I mentioned in the promo earlier, Raquel Gonzalez is money. She's absolute money. She's going to be money in NXT. She's going to become an NXT Women's Champion in the future, I have no doubt, and she's going to become a WWE Women's Champion on the main roster. When you've got that size, that look, and I think her work in the ring is developing very nicely. I think her promos are developing very nicely. Raquel Gonzalez is going to be money. And I think a lot of people doubted her when she was initially first paired up with Dakota Kai at NXT TakeOver Portland earlier this year. But the development from then to now has been absolutely superb. I think she looked great. And to me, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez should challenge for the women's tag team titles. They'd be perfect as women's tag team champions. Now, of course, we know that Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are facing Bayley and Sasha Banks on Sunday at Payback, and I think Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler will win that match. What perfect first challenges for Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler than Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And if WWE had any balls, their creative team had any balls, they would have Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez win. What a great way of introducing them to the main roster by defending the Women's Tag Team Championships on Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. It also looks like the Mercedes Martinez and Rhea Ripley feud will continue, so we're going to get a match there. I think eventually we're going to get Io Shirai versus Rhea Ripley too. But I thought this was a good match and a good finish, and ultimately it made Raquel Gonzalez look like a star. So enjoyed that one, and to be honest, enjoyed this episode of NXT overall. Second week in a row I've watched it live. Usually I watch Dynamite live on Wednesdays, but really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a better episode than last week. Obviously a lot of moving parts here. Championship changes, championship being vacated. News coming out of NXT TakeOver, but I'm excited. I'm excited for next week. That Iron Man match is going to be great, and just again a very overall enjoyable episode of NXT. Interesting to see how well it does in the ratings. Last week it did quite well, as unopposed to AEW. Some people might have been slightly disappointed that it didn't get over 900,000. I think was it 800,000 or something like that, which is great for NXT, a great NXT number. But some people will say, "Oh, they didn't hit 1 million." Well, when was the last time AEW hit 1 million or anyone hit 1 million on Wednesday? So I think some people assume that the AEW number would just merge into NXT. But I think people have to realize those viewership bases are very, very different. The NXT audience is very old, always older, and the AEW audience is much younger. And they're just not interested in the NXT or WWE product. And that's what that is. So I think they'll do well again tomorrow in the ratings. I think they'll probably do better than they did last week. I would hope so. Coming out of NXT TakeOver with the news, especially with the Karrion Kross injury. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But what did you think of tonight's episode of NXT? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below or in the live chat. If you've enjoyed this video, this stream, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds here on YouTube. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. We're on our road to 800 subscribers, on the long road to 1,000 subscribers. Once we get to 1,000, we'll be doing a lot more live streams and watch-alongs like this. So if you do enjoy, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. If you have subscribed already, just know that I really do appreciate it. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. The handles are on the screen right now. The links are in the description box below. It's at 365 Wrestle on Twitter and at Wrestle News 365 on Facebook and Instagram. So you can give us a like or a follow there if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video.